Ed Miliband is a massive nutter. No amount of regulation, no amount of licensing, no amount of do-gooding is going to stop the people who don't take care of themselves being robbed. It's your life. Take responsibility.
Exactly. Responsibility for your own life, Rupert. I'm not sure we can have that now, can we? Honestly.
Why is the pub a valuable institution to keep alive? And I would open up by saying, well, pubs have existed in some form or another in these islands for nearly 2,000 years.
We celebrate in our pubs, we commiserate in our pubs, we have wakes in them and we have weddings in them. And, you know, birthdays and bar mitzvahs. It is the meeting place of the British. It's where we coalesce.
It is where the English and the British go to talk, to have open conversations with one another about all things. The state, the regime that governs this country now, doesn't like speech. You know, I think it's self-evident that they do not like people saying things that they don't approve of. Welcome back to the Restore Britain podcast. This is the first one of 2026. My name is Charlie Downs. I'm the campaigns director here at Restore Britain, and I'm very pleased today to be joined by our leader, Rupert Lowe MP, as well as Matt Slocombe. Matt, you are a former landlord, a man with a great deal of experience in the hospitality industry, and the author of our most recent policy paper called Restoring the British Pub. And we're going to talk about that today. Excellent. So, Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and why you felt the need to get involved with Restore Britain as a man who has spent his life in the world of pubs and hospitality.
Yeah, well, 25 years now, so half of my life anyway, Charlie, definitely. But no, I mean, I'm very fortunate, met Rupert in Brexit party days and stayed in touch. And he will have lived the trials and tribulations, actually, of our pub industry, because he very kindly answered most of my questions I put to him over the tumultuous period with sort of lockdowns and things like that. But I just feel the same with the Brexit Party movement, so passionate about what's actually happening to the country. Restoring it is exactly what needs to happen. So delighted when Rupert invited me to come on board and help. And I've had an amazing time talking to a lot of the trade bodies and things to do with the pub industry, and very important, I think we must say hospitality industry, because it's very important that all of those places, and if you look in our paper, the deaths of businesses, as the very inappropriate or unfortunate phrase they use, has been vast throughout, not just pubs, restaurants and hotels especially. And the just absolute belief now, when you have Treasury ministers telling us that they hadn't quite looked at all the facts around business rates and such, well, you should have done. You really should have done. And so these are the things that drive you to just want to make a change. So I was absolutely thrilled to get stuck into our document about restoring the British pub.
It does seem as though there is a huge feeling in that industry at the moment. And I don't know, because, I mean, the most I've done is pull pints behind a bar when I was at university, which was great. But based on some of the individuals, the professionals that you spoke to, who are quoted in our policy paper, it does seem as though there is a mood in the industry of extreme dissatisfaction, disaffection with the way that the country is being governed. I think the business rates are probably the most recent in a long line of, I think, what a lot of those people would view as being betrayals of small businesses, and it's not just an economic thing, is it? It's also it's a social thing. It's a spiritual thing for our country, the pub.
100%. I mean, in relation to the business rates, and when it was packaged as something that would assist, it was going to level up the playing field between online giants, between supermarkets and pubs. And then you look at the figures done within sort of 12 hours, you've got the announcement going like, there's a bit, no, there's not. Absolutely, the reverse is true. And it's just that level of incompetence that really beggars belief. And your point about, the social importance of pubs in Britain can just never be, it's so important. It is the absolute lifeblood, in my opinion, of what makes Britain Britain, is its pubs and its hospitality trade. And if we drown your selves if you lose your inns, because then you have lost the very heart of England. Yes. As Belloc, that was a pretty murdered version of that quote.
It's true, though.
But it is true. We will lose our very heart and our blood if our pubs keep failing, and we can't have what, since 2016, 17,000 closing. We're now up to they're predicting. I've just seen UK Hospitality have mentioned today that they're now saying 2,000 this year.
Oh my goodness!
I mean, we've gone from one a day, which sounded pretty bad. to now live 2.5 a day or something.
Yeah.
It's just extraordinary, the pressure.
It's so depressing. Rupert, what's your view of this? Specifically on, I mean, obviously you're a businessman. So what's your view of the business rates and the sort of fiscal side of this?
Well, firstly, Charlie, I should say Happy New Year to all of our
Indeed,
viewers.
yes.
And it's the first time, as you say, we've appeared in the new year on the podcast.
And what a year it's been so far.
It's been an interesting year, and we're going on to talk a bit about that in a minute, I think. But
yes.
no, I think I'm grateful to Matt for producing this document, obviously with help from the team, which is great. And we've got to do more of this. I mean, I think we did a great job with the immigration document. This is a follow-up, and we've got others coming through now. But it's actually heartbreaking to see, and it's not just the pubs and hospitality sector. They're going to be particularly badly affected by what Rachel Reeves has been doing and what's happening with regard to the business rates, which were too high before this revaluation, and now they're going to basically put a lot of people out of business.
Well, I read this morning it's going to cost pubs on average something like nearly 15 grand over the next 3 years, these business rates. And it's going to cost hotels some untold hundreds of thousands.
Well, running a pub, and Matt can correct me if he disagrees, but I think it's very much, like farming or like a lot of these other industries where you may appear to be rich because you've got assets, but you are running effectively what is a vocational business.
Yes.
So people are driven to run a pub because they love running a pub. They're driven to farm because they love running a farm. They're driven to lots of, i.e. a low-income lifestyle, which takes up a lot of their time. And what we're seeing is Rachel Reeves and the Labour Party, who are not only ladling on sort of the workers' rights bill, you've obviously had huge tax increases, more and more regulation. You've got more and more sort of, let's make tax digital, which means more accountancy costs.
Yes.
The headwinds for all small businesses are just so terrible now, Charlie, that I think most of the ministers have never run a business. They don't understand the effect of what they're doing. And I think for a lot of people, this business rates increase will be the final nail in the coffin, and not just in the hospitality sector. It's a bit like, when we all talk about APT, don't forget business property relief, which is also going to affect small businesses. It's going to affect the continuity of investment in those businesses. The long-term lifeblood of an economy is long-term private sector investment, never central planning by the state.
Yes.
And I just don't think any of the ministers on the front bench, or a lot of the MPs in Parliament, judging by the early day motion I did on business rates, we had very little take up. So we actually then wrote an open letter to the Chancellor, which, as you know, I think now 7,000 businesses have signed that. I think it took 6.5 minutes to scroll through those who'd signed, and thank you to all of them. And I do think actions speak louder than words, so that they really have now got to stand up and fight for themselves, for their communities. Because as you say, Matt, this holds the communities together. Family businesses hold the communities together. A vibrant local economy holds that part of the country together. But I sometimes think that the central planners and the statists don't want a vibrant local economy that actually is self-sufficient. They seem to want to create this dependency culture. And the tragedy is a lot of this money that they're taking off these small businesses who are actually doing all the work and generating all the wealth, that's all being distributed to people on welfare, to immigrants, to illegal migrants, to people who are not contributing, who are taking from our economy.
Yes. And who are incentivized to do so as well.
And I always
it's so easily done.
I always have this image in my mind of the host animal, which is being killed, being fed upon by the hyenas and the parasites. And when there's nothing left of the carcass, there's nothing left for them to feed on. And I actually think we are getting to that stage with the private sector British economy. So what we need now is we need a total change. I mean, I've never understood why on earth people should pay such high business rates anyway, and then hand it over to an indolent, ineffective government. And I see this on the Public Accounts Committee every week. I see waste on an absolutely massive scale.
Yeah.
It's just incomprehensible as to how anyone can square the circle of collecting money from productive Britain and handing it out to unproductive, to indolence, to foster welfarism and to foster dependency. No, we should be fostering individualism. We should be fostering self-reliance. We should be fostering a small government looking after the key issues for our people, not destroying the vibrancy of the pub sector. And you run a great pub, Matt. You've contributed locally. You've got your cider. You now distribute. You've been an innovator from the day I met you when we both stood. I stood for the Brexit Party. So it's great that you've done this document, and I think, Charlie, we should let Matt speak to that, because it really is quite powerful that we've actually got somebody. How rare is that? Somebody with a political movement who actually knows what he's talking about.
I know.
Well,
yes.
Maybe about pubs, not about
not worrying about Westminster tittle-tattle and the drivel that's peddled there. Actually understands the industry that he's in.
Well, this increasingly is a feeling that I think we all feel, especially with recent news, which I think we're going to get onto in a while, about certain political manoeuvrings by people who are looking to save their careers, and I think putting that before the interests of the nation. But no, on this point of the majority of the Labour front bench never having run businesses, I think that's such an important point, and something that I don't hear a lot of people addressing alongside that fact is that I think, as much as that means they don't have experience of running a business and understanding the pressures and so on, it also means that they don't understand the way in which a business. And look, I only say this knowing people who have expressed these feelings to me in the past, employers of mine in the past. But the idea of a business as a labour of love, the idea of a business like a pub being something that is a vocation with very, very tight margins. I mean, I worked in a pub when I was at university. It was a family owned pub in Virginia Water, beautiful little place, just one of the greatest pubs I've ever been to and had the pleasure of working in. And I drove past it about a year ago, and it was all boarded up. And that was seriously one of the most depressing moments of my life.
The Virginia Water near Sunningdale, was that?
That's right, yeah.
And it was probably a vibrant,
very rich part of England too.
It is, and
vibrant pub when you work there. Probably.
Yeah. And what does it say that a pub, even in a region in a region like that, can't survive? In this economy, it's just I don't know. It's just so depressing to see.
With my experience in it, the thing it hasn't just been all of us. I mean, it's been amplified over the last, since this Labour government have certainly seemed to have turned up fiscal pressures on us. Let's put it on the trade. Let's put it that way. But it's been historically the same. And in the paper, there's look at VAT rates. So it's so disproportionate to Europe. We will operate in buildings that are costly, horrible to heat, normally older. So they cost more because they collapse around you. And so all of these extra pressures are quite unique to the pub trade. Obviously, retail has that a lot as well. And I've always said that the pub trade is part of retail. But, it does become a vocation. It does become a part of life. I've always said you are an innkeeper. You're never a pub owner, you're an innkeeper. And even if you've got a big estate, you'll be leaving, someone else will take over it eventually, and your job is always to make sure it can stay there, keep being there. And you do end up, I felt enormous sense of pride, because people ask you, you're the landlord, and you get called landlord, and people ask you to sign the back of their passports and things like that. And, they probably get fed up with your political posturing sometimes from behind the bar, especially when you were wound up by, in fact, the gentleman we might be talking about later, when he was trying to give us vaccine passports and things like that. So because you feel it so much, and we've certainly felt it over our response to the SARS-CoV-2 outbreak, that was just, you just felt like, what are they doing to us? Why is this? And it hasn't really stopped since, I don't think, for that feeling within the trade and within guys on the front line. That it just seems to have been constantly. And then you start thinking, is this actually deliberate? Surely it can't be deliberate. Do they not want us to congregate that much? And all these sorts of slightly crazy ideas. But it is if we don't do something about this right now, it is going to be catastrophic. And these pubs, that brilliant place you worked with, don't reopen. They might come back as an HMO. Yes. And they might come back as, a Tesco Express, and great, it's being reused, but it never come back as a pub.
Something I'd like to ask you on that, Matt, actually, it's a thought that I've had before, is what I call the Wetherspoonsification of our economy. Because I do think that on the one hand, a company like Wetherspoons is to be commended, because a lot of the pubs, a lot of the properties that they buy up and then either, continue to use as pubs or turn into pubs, they would, if they weren't bought out by a company like Wetherspoons, be turned into flats, they'd be knocked down. And in a lot of cases, these are beautiful historic buildings. On the other hand, though, I think that there is something lost when you are in a pub that is owned by this, kind of massive corporation where all of the food, all of the drinks are generic and standardized across all of their venues. What's your view as somebody who's in the industry of this phenomenon?
Well, Tim Martin's physics teacher must be delighted that he gave him that bad report, as Mr. Weatherspoon was his name. That's why he named club chain after him. Hey, incredible success, unique model. Beer comes in quite late, gets served very quickly. Food very, very cheap, good quality, good value, whatever. So, hey, like you've just said, it's a pub that's open, it's running, it's busy. You walk past the Weatherspoons at 7:15 in the morning, and people are in there having breakfast.
Yeah,
even they might
have a
table in the corner, and they're having a Guinness. But who hasn't?
It's a very effective business model.
It's an incrable business model, and they open all day. And they serve all day, and they never stop. And you go in them, they're busy. And its price point they have to be busy because of their price point, and they are. Yeah. And so I would not knock that at all. I mean,
but how can a small independent pub compete with that?
Well, that's part of we've addressed in the paper is if we could look at more duty relief for small drinks producers and pass on. There's a draft relief scheme which along with the Institute of Brewers Association, we're really pushing to do a much greater discount, up to 20% of that on that duty relief. It's at 9.2, I think, now off the top of my head. But those sorts of things, if we can supercharge our local drinks producers, then alcohol producers, those are the things that separate the pubs. Those are the things that separate the small independent, because they've got, oh, that's interesting. What's that drink you've got there? What's that? The food's different. The menu's much shorter. Things aren't frozen. So there's always, for me, it was always about you had to have some form of USP. That's how you survive those, whether it's your cricket club or something you do that's as unique as possible. The glorious riverside location of somewhere like the Black Bear in Tewkesbury or something, incredible. Those that's their USP. What have you got when you're just a corner pub in South London or whatever? So how do you get something unique? Those great products from small producers, I think, is a great way of doing that. I'm not. There's room for both. And it's those operators who are the ones that Rupert's alluded to previously, who are all in on it. They're first to get there, last to leave. 70, 80 hours, stupid hour weeks.
But Matt, to what extent? And again, I think you should walk through the proposals that you've made in that document, because I think a lot of them make a lot of sense. But I think I'm right in saying, as I was somewhere yesterday where it's cost them an absolute fortune. Health and safety has cost them a fortune. And I think, again, assuming these valiant private pubs and venues can get through business rates, they've then got the headwinds of regulation. And I know that's an issue which I think is a big issue for all small businesses. And, of course, then we've also got to, I think, touch on the nonsense of Red Ed Miliband's energy policy, which... I mean, I don't know about you, and all of our listeners must be feeling it, but I got the bill for a month from my house over Christmas, and I honestly don't understand how people can actually pay for their own heating, let alone run a business on the back of that. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I have Fergal O'Brien, who trains at the top of the hill on the farm. I mean, his energy bills have just gone through the roof. So. Business rates, energy bills. And energy bills is an own goal. We've got 35 years of proven North Sea oil and gas reserves. We've got some of the biggest fracking reserves.
We buy that from Denmark instead, don't we?
No, we buy it. Most of it comes from
Norway. Sorry, yes, Norway.
So Norway is actually using much more advanced methods of recovering oil from aging wells and flogging it to us. The whole thing's a complete and utter nonsense. I mean, and when are we going to wake up? And I think the British people can see it. And what they want a leadership that says we're going to put Britain first. We are going to use our proven oil and gas resources. Meanwhile, transition to some form of green energy when it becomes economic, or slowly, so that you don't actually bankrupt yourself.
When it works,
because I always say bankrupt yourself and your economy, and you cease to have any global influence whatsoever. And when you watch China and you watch India and you watch Indonesia, they're shipping, they're actually digging coal and building railways, and they're actually burning coal in power stations. And meanwhile, we are killing our economy. Yeah. I mean, honestly, what is going on? And when are people going to stand up and start saying this is absolute palpable nonsense?
Everything.
A bit like giving away the Chagos Islands. I mean, absolute rubbish.
Yeah. Everything is energy. isn't it? Every single business. You know, the bright lights in here from the pub cooler, the walk-in fridge, and then you go to a great big cider maker and they've got industrial presses and this and
everything. And that's why Victorian.
And you're just going, what exactly?
Kept
Victoria
power
didn't work because we had cheap power.
Power cheap and
Simple.
water clean.
Yeah.
Those were the two key issues to drive the economy.
Yeah.
What have
we
we
don't,
got now?
we don't have either.
Some people haven't even got any water at the moment.
Yeah.
And we've got, probably the most expensive energy in the world.
Yes,
So,
certainly in Europe. I mean, this is the thing. The net zero issue has obviously been, everybody knows that it's absolutely ridiculous and stupid, but it does bear repeating that it is the vanity of people like Ed Miliband, because I think that is ultimately what it is. It is ideological vanity. This guy wants to be seen to be this great hero of environmentalism and so on the world stage by his friends in the G7 and all the rest of it. When actually what it's doing is, on the altar of that vanity, on the altar of that ideology, he is making it impossible for pubs and other small businesses that are energy intensive and which do have huge overheads. It's making them impossible to run. And I just can't believe that this is the situation that we're in as a country in the 21st century. I mean, when I was growing up, it's like the cliche of I thought we'd be having, flying cars and stuff in 2026, but instead we can't even, run pubs. You think that'd be
you can't even keep the lights on in the pub.
Fundamental priorities of the government.
I mean, we all know, Charlie, that Ed Miliband is a massive nutter. He's a do-gooder.
Yeah.
And, the other thing that's going to affect pubs, of course, which we were active on last week, is these do-gooders who want to cut the drink driving level without any actual evidence that cutting it further. I think in Scotland, I'm right in saying actually it didn't make any real difference.
Yeah.
So why would you want to, other than virtue signalling do-gooding, why do you want to further put a nail in the coffin of your pub and hospitality industry for the sake of being seen? And I've seen several Labour MPs talking about this as if they know all the answers, but I think the majority of Britain now just wants to be left alone to get on with their own lives. Yeah. And in the end, let's return to caveat emptor. And we know what that is. We don't need the regulators. We just need caveat emptor. And you know what that means? That is buyer beware. Mm-hmm. And if you go to the wrong place and you spend your money with the wrong person, you lose your money, it's your problem. Mm-hmm. No amount of regulation, no amount of licensing, no amount of do-gooding is going to stop the people who don't take care of themselves being robbed. They get robbed now, but they get robbed even more. So caveat emptor, actually, that's what regulation used to be.
Yeah, you do your due diligence. Check it out.
It's your life. Take responsibility.
Exactly. Responsibility for your own life, Rupert. I'm not sure we can have that now, can we? Honestly.
I would like to delve a little bit deeper into why the pub is important, though, because we've talked all of this, all this stuff on business and on the difficulties of actually running a pub day to day. But it does beg the question of, well, why is the pub a valuable institution to keep alive? And I would open up by saying, well, pubs have existed in some form or another in these islands for nearly 2,000 years. There were inns and taverns during, the period of Roman occupation of Britain. There were pubs, public houses all throughout the Middle Ages and right the way up to the present. And I think there's a lot of reasons why they are really important. One, which you've touched on already today, Matt, is the fact that it is where the English and the British go to talk, to have open conversations with one another about all things. And I do think, one part of that is the political side. And I do wonder, as you suggested, whether there is an agenda to prevent ordinary British people from having difficult conversations. I think that the state, the regime that governs this country now doesn't like speech. I think it's self-evident that they do not like people saying things that they don't approve of. It's very authoritarian in that regard. They don't like people having political conversations about things like immigration, things like the legitimacy of the current government in the pubs. But something else that I don't hear a lot of people talking about is the fact that, do you know what else the pub is important for? It's important for non-political conversations. Because I think part of something that's happened over the last few decades in this country is the disappearance of intermediary institutions that protect the individual from the state. These institutions have been stripped back, and so that the individual is kind of laid bare before this Leviathan state and is defenseless before it. And I think the pub is actually maybe the most important of all of the intermediary institutions in our society, outside of obviously the household itself. And I think that also bears mentioning, because I think that it's actually hugely important for our nation's, to use the sort of modern parlance, mental health. It's important for the mental health of our nation, of our people, that they do have pubs. That they do have these places that they can go to just blow off steam, to relax, to loosen up a little bit. And Matt, I know you've spent your life providing that service,
doing exactly that, and you're right, because excuse me, if you get the 4 o'clock crowd or the 5 o'clock crowd, and it's coming in, actually, it's not just having a pint, but just, oh, blimey, oh, what happened, mate, with what, and you act as counsellor and therapist, and like, no, you can't have that on tap, and banker, and you act as so you become, and then an hour later, that person had what may not even had like I said, a flipping fizzy water, it doesn't matter, but it's about they've de-stressed, they've chatted their problem out, it wasn't that bad after all, okay, mate, brilliant, see you tomorrow, and that happens every pub visit. I would say there's someone who leaves in a better frame of mind. We celebrate in our pubs, we commiserate in our pubs, we have wakes in them, and we have weddings in them, and birthdays and bar mitzvahs. It is the meeting place of the British. It's where we coalesce. It's where...
particularly important, isn't it, for the rural communities where you've got farmers, very high suicide rate amongst farmers because they're working on their own a lot. Anyone who's in the country doesn't necessarily have the same access to social life. No. And humans are a social animal. They do need to be brought together. And to your point, Charlie, maybe the state don't want people coming together because, remember, it's not just pubs, it's coffee houses. So, we had coffee houses. We had, people, that's how Lloyd's of London was formed, which has become a huge earner for the British economy. Everybody came and offset the risks of shipping all sorts of goods from various parts of the world here. I mean, from copper to coffee to cocoa to sugar to whatever it happened to be. And that's where a lot of the insurance market developed. So human beings are a social animal. And I think it's probably more important almost in the country, in the rural communities. And again, that's where people have to use a car to get to the pub. So... do you think, is it more important to the country, and do you think it will damage the country more than the cities?
The countryside, 100%. Yes, I do, definitely, because you're absolutely right. I can think back, in the older days, Wednesdays was locals night, and the same guys would come in and they'd sit in the same seat, and they'd probably order exactly the same drinks in the same order, and it'd take them the same amount of time to drink it. And whilst you can think, it was real, it was honest, it was proper, and it was how these were a group of old farmers, for example, and they sat and they brought in Farmers Weekly because one had read it, and heaven forbid they all both buy it, so you swap that.
Quite expensive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quite expensive.
Absolutely. Share the Farmers Weekly around. And then so farming and pubs have just been intrinsically linked forever. And something we started way back was all 2000. It was like local stuff, and who's the best guy for that? And then you get the farmer coming in, eating his own meat, and the guy who's made the cider around the corner coming in and sharing that with, and that's what it's about. It's that we feed people.
Yeah,
and farmers feed people, and we're the front line of it. And most of what comes into us, good pub, you've bought British, and you've got quality seasonal things. So the link between farming and pubs is massive. And another thing that we feel in a countryside community is when they're attacking farmers as well, and then you're attacking the pub, and you're going, and then they come at drag hunting, and then are they coming at shooting as well, and you're just going, what are they coming for next? And that's what it feels like, and that's the sort of thing you get. You sort of alluded earlier about politics in pubs, and it's not just that, but those are the conversations people are having. Like, what are they going to do to us next? It just feels
people
like,
just think, leave it alone.
Yeah,
leave it alone.
Get out of my way. Old fashioned. I just want to try and put a roof over my head, try and look after my family, try and do these things. That's what most people are saying. And all you get is constant barriers.
I mean, it's a beautiful thing you're describing. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing you're describing there, Matt, that, that there is this symbiotic relationship between farms and pubs and the people in the sort of local communities. And that's the beauty of, I'm not as sort of libertarian as you are, Rupert, but I do think there is a beauty in just leaving the British people to do their thing, because in the absence of restraints, the British people do tend to create these beautiful, complex local ecosystems, communities, which are a beautiful thing. And in the absence of that state intervention, that tends to be what happens. And
but a lot of that happens through human interaction.
because
So if you
people
stop
meet.
the human interaction,
Yeah.
and you know how much we all do on X and on Facebook and on all the other social media platforms.
Too much for our own good.
There's nothing like people actually socially getting
coming together.
Yeah.
And I think that the social media platforms are a great thing. I think they are a great thing for what
trying
you
to
and
ban
I believe in.
those. Yeah, they're
I
trying to
mean,
ban
I
those
think
as
what
well.
Musk has done. There's no coincidence they're trying to ban. I mean, it's absolute rubbish what they're talking about. And you can use AI to do all sorts of things on Adobe and all other.
Well, I think Snapchat is the worst.
This is just because what's happened is Elon Musk has created a free speech platform, and it's very powerful. So people are beginning to use it a lot. They don't need to go to the mainstream media anymore. They can get it all on X. They can get it all on the social media platforms. And I had this in the BBC debate at the Public Accounts Committee the other day. Most young people don't go to get their news from the BBC.
Of course they don't.
Yeah.
They didn't accept that. No, it's quite extraordinary. I
is
just
extraordinary.
don't think they do.
Yeah. Well, I heard that statistic.
They get their
during
news
that
on
meeting.
TikTok.
Yeah.
That's from my children.
But
But it's so
50%
powerful,
don't.
so
Yeah.
powerful that's why the state, I think, is coming after Elon Musk, and that's why we consulted our legal team, and we will play a part in. I think it's so important we don't lose a platform like X, which can highlight the issues that we're talking about now. And actually start to put huge pressure. I mean, we couldn't have done what we did with the business rates, lobby.
Absolutely.
With all the businesses. You didn't have the communication power to do it. But what's happening is we're marginalizing the mainstream media and we're empowering everybody in the community.
Yeah.
So in a way, that should be added to, I think, by making it easier and more available for people to go to pubs. We don't want to lose our pubs. We don't want to lose our shops. We don't want to lose all of the community stuff that pulls people together. Because the British are very creative. But you know what? They're creative when they get together. So you need some time together. You need some discussion. You need some debate. Because you can sit and you can get, you can't see the wood for the trees if you just sit there on your own. And I think a lot of the problem with farmers is they're literally in a tractor cab all day. They're worrying about what they're going to do. They're on their own. And it's so important for them to go and get some social time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that people coming together like that is just absolutely vital. And something I just recall after we were released, the Inglorious 12th, as I called it, when I remember sweeping snow off our deck, going, great, we've got to open outside tonight. But we did go for it and this sort of thing. But then ever since then, people have been changed by being locked up.
Oh, yes.
It hugely, the difference it made on the way people behaved in a social environment. Everything had just become, if it's further away than here, I don't need to deal with it. And yeah, the sort of politeness went,
But a lot of the
manners went out of it. And that was because people hadn't been together.
But a lot of our problems today stem from the bad decisions that were made during lockdown. And we know Anders
Thank goodness lots of these people aren't
Sweden didn't lock down. He was very strong, and Sweden's economy's hardly missed a heartbeat compared with ours. So it's not only affected people psychologically, it's affected businesses as well.
Yes.
And it's all very well for these people to say, well, they had furlough and they had bounce back loans and they had... No, it was so damaging, and it was the decisions that were made were bad decisions, and nobody's been held to account for that.
Just really good job that all those people aren't coming back into mainstream politics, isn't it?
Indeed.
Phew.
Haha.
Thank goodness.
One last point on this, though, just on what you were saying there, Matt, because I think this is also really important. It is the case that I think the state is making it more and more difficult for companies like pubs and hotels and so on, hospitality industry, to operate in this country. But I do also think it does, it bears mentioning that it's the entirety of our culture that is tending towards a more atomized we have a more atomized culture now. And I do think that as much as it is the fault of the state for making it difficult for these businesses to operate, it is also the decisions of individuals to give money to organizations like, the one that I always sort of comes to my mind is these food delivery companies like Deliveroo and Uber Eats and Just Eat and so on, which to me is like the epitome of this sort of individualist.
You don't even have all you've got to do is open the door to a stranger and you can get anything you want.
And you can
haven't actually got to go and meet anyone or go and even the chat in the fish and chip shop.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
just go,
Yeah.
get out there.
It's like you can tap a button on your phone at 3 a.m. and a Somalian will deliver you a pizza on a small motorbike.
Yeah.
And I do think, I mean, that is also contributing to the death of the pubs because I was where was I? I was back in Kent recently, driving somewhere on a Saturday afternoon, going past some pubs, and a lot of them are just empty. They're just empty. And sure, people don't have as much disposable income as they used to because things are getting more and more expensive.
What were you doing in Kent, surely?
Yeah.
You don't live in Kent, do you?
I don't live there anymore, but it's where I'm from.
Is it?
It's back home. But no, and I was just looking and I was thinking, like, really, it is also incumbent upon people to, if they want these institutions to survive, to actually patronise them and to actually use them. Because it's all well and good complaining about pubs closing, but actually, if you're not using them yourself and you're instead spending your money on Deliveroo and so on.
Again, the problem is, and everyone, I think, there's certainly looking through social media, you can say, well, it's all well and good saying we've got to go to the pub, but it's £7 a pint and the fish and chips are 18 quid. It is.
Expensive.
It is ridiculous. And then it's brilliant because there's so many pub operators who've been going, okay, and they do it from their cellar and they're telling you, well, this is how much it is. £1 in every 3, it's probably more now. It's probably more like £1.20. So your £6 pint, at least £2 of that is going straight to the government.
Yeah.
Straight to the government.
Unbelievable.
Great, and this is something I really wanted to put up because, you alluded to working in a pub when you were young. Who hasn't? I'm not being funny, but who hasn't? It was, after the last financial crash, 2010 to 20, the pubs employed, up top of my head, 1 in 5 of new jobs was hospitality, and 1 in 3 if you're under 24. The footfall on the high street, the capital investment on the high street, absolutely extraordinary, and that can happen again if pubs are just given some form of level playing field. So that we've touched on business rates, but I really wanted to there's a huge effort now, and I think it has to be driven from, certainly with Restore we'll be doing it, but all of the major trade bodies now, and we've got to have a new VAT rate.
Yes,
we've got to learn from our neighbours in Europe that how substantially. And it makes it £5.50 a pint, not £6 or whatever it happens to be. Or, there's a bit of margin left in it for the operator. Drop those prices. People go to the pub again. They're more likely to holiday in this country if hotel prices come down, because that could be given a separate VAT rate for accommodation. Every single thing we produce is VATable. We don't have anything zero rated. Days gone by, I think it was just before I started actually, but the food part never used to be VATable in pubs, and then they changed that.
Well, France got a much lower VAT rate on hospitality than we have, haven't they?
Yeah, I think they're at 9.5, aren't they?
And this is what was so clear to me reading your paper, Matt, is that all of this stuff just seems like common sense. It just seems really obvious.
And these levers have been pulled before. They'd put a 5% rate on, and then was it again 12.5, I think, during lockdowns and things, and when we was reopened. And it worked. It was an instant shot in the arm. It's just a calculation. There's no, and again, there's been some excellent research done into a 12.5% VAT rate, and within 5 years, the revenue to the economy, the extra revenue to the economy, could be nearly £50 billion. It's extraordinary how much it's right there.
Yeah,
it's right there.
It's
so obvious.
Yeah.
Can we please just have a little bit less tax, and then this industry, the hospitality industry, can get us out of the shit.
Nobody has ever taxed themselves into prosperity.
No, they.
Yeah, it's just you just have to generate wealth, don't you? And that's how you maximise your tax revenue. If you want to have a welfare state, you need to have an economy that actually generates wealth, and we don't have that now. And just put the squeeze on the people who do.
Beautiful benefit of if you can help hospitality. Yes, we've got all those economic drivers we've just talked about, and yes, we've got all those young people. The youngsters can't get a job now because there's no pub hiring, and it's literally like that. And so clear that road, and then we'll keep building that social cohesion that's so important. We'll keep having that spirit and we'll settle arguments, and we'll be the mini parliaments that every pub in the land should be, and then we'll have wonderful birthdays and all those things if the pub's there and if it gets a level playing field. Then all of these things will continue.
Yes. So, Matt, you alluded to something just now about certain people trying to save their political careers and come back in. Some of those people being the tyrants who locked us down, who imposed mandatory vaccinations on children and so on. And one such person is Nadeem Zahawi. Now, we're not going to talk a great deal about him as an individual, or indeed the party that he has joined in the last 48 hours. But yeah, he's joined Reform UK to quite some fanfare. And I want us to talk about briefly what we think of that. And then I want us to talk about a positive vision, because it's very easy for us to criticise reform. Rupert, obviously you have very good reasons to dislike those people. And I do think many of us are now realising that they are kind of taking people down the garden path, and they're selling people something when in fact they are not what they appear to be. So yeah, Nadeem Zahawi, arch Tory, one of the architects of lockdown and so on. Somebody who has argued in favour of mass immigration, argued in favour of increasing immigration in the past, has said that it's good that we remit millions, billions of pounds to countries like Somalia, because that's what props up their economies. Just absolutely the wrong type of person to shepherd this country out of the multitude of crises that currently face it. And yet, Reform UK, populist right-wing insurgent party, so-called, has embraced him.
I think this goes back, the reason I got involved way back when is you saw people like Rupert doing it and you go like, okay, guy's got some experience. Oh, talk some sense. Oh, that would be handy in politics. And that was the one reason why I think a lot of people looked at reform and I certainly did, and looked at it and went, okay, this is going to be great. There's going to be different people. Yeah. It's going to be a new way of doing politics. Refreshing experience. Oh my gosh, thank goodness. Get away from this Blairist, do a fairly mediocre degree, go and pick up a bag, go and do 6 months in Washington, come back, carry another bag, and then, oh, you're an MP. Really? No more of that, thank you. And then you're going, great, that sounds fantastic. I think people get on board with that. And then they do this.
Yes.
And it just, for me, becomes, what? It's just a serious what? Why? And okay, he must have been really upset he didn't get his peerage.
Yeah,
to suddenly go like that, and then and the tits and tat. No, I'm all for politicians actually getting on a bit better with each other, and not. I hate personal stuff. It's nonsense. You've lost the argument as soon as you're personal, and you should be able to completely disagree with someone on one point and then happily work with them on something else.
Of course,
brilliant. But I think there's just some fundamental things that he's backed that you just go. I'm not happy. I think that is a dreadful decision.
Yeah, Rupert?
Well, I think it's an extraordinary decision, Charlie, but I'm not sure there's much different between Nadine Dorries and Nadeem Zahawi. I mean, Nadine Dorries would have marched over the cliff with Boris.
Yes.
The last thing we want is another Boris. She seems to have taken a lot to Nigel now. Look, I would have helped Nigel. As Matt said, I think I did quite a lot to help drive reform support. I just got on with it.
By the way, I thought it was funny, that clip of Nadeem Zahawi. Did you see this? Saying,
yes,
on
the day before.
Yeah, that you were the best new performer in Parliament. I thought that was quite
that I'm not in this to be praised, really. I'm just in it to try and change the way we're governed, and I think we all share that hope. But I would have helped Nigel become Prime Minister, and the issue between us, and I was surprised they did what they did. I mean, the way they did it was, in my view, dishonest and unfair. I would never have done what they did, and that in the fullness of time, this is all going to come out. How wide that sort of that devious plan went, I don't know, but we're sort of gradually peeling away the layers of the truth, which we're slowly getting at. But I think the British people have realised now, and I thought the latest poll, which pre-Zahawi, was very interesting.
Yeah,
I think we've probably seen peak reform. And I think this is a terrible decision for them. If I'd been involved, I would have counselled that I thought it was not a clever move.
They probably would have called the police if you'd said that.
Sorry?
They would have called the police if you'd said that.
They could have done. They could have done, Charlie. As you know, I liken Nigel to a beech tree. Nothing grows underneath him. And this is the problem with reform. So, Beechley, the trees of a beech tree are poisonous, so nothing grows under them. And I think the British people realise that actually we need a completely fresh slate. And actually hiring yesterday's has-beens from either the Tory party or from any other party is not the answer. And particularly in the case of Nadeem Zahawi, for the reasons you said, or Nadine Dorries. I mean, what did she ever really achieve when she was...
The Online Safety Act? That was one of her crown jewels?
Not very much.
Yeah.
I think she had a column in one of the newspapers, didn't she? I think she eviscerated me in that at one point.
I'm sure.
But I think the issue for reform is bigger than just Nadeem Zahawi. I think it's where is their structure, where are their policies, where's the shadow cabinet, and where's the plan? And I can't see, and I couldn't see, this was the issue between Nigel and I. It shouldn't have been a big issue, and it should have been an issue we all sought to resolve, because I don't think we can sort out Britain's problems by hiring one man who runs it like a mini dictatorship. I think what we have to do is get a group of people who represent their area, their constituency, their profession, their trade, people with experience, people who ultimately come together to make the right decisions for the country. But they also are quite prepared to, as you say, debate with each other and disagree over issues of priority for their constituency.
Yes.
Because Britain is, not only is it a nation state, again, thanks to the vote in 2016, which I think a lot of our politicians have lost sight of, particularly Labour, and the Starmerite attempt to sort of cuddle back up to a failing socialist Europe, which he's obviously trying to do against the will of the majority of people. But I think it's two things. It's let's do what's right for the nation, but let's have some active debate about what parts of the country need to be actively invested in. Now, I publicly have said, and I hold to this, that I don't agree with devolution. I would reverse devolution tomorrow. I'd get rid of the Senate. I'd get rid of the Scottish Parliament. I hate all that division. I want the country, including Northern Ireland, fully part of our country, which it is. I want us all to engage bottom up, and that's what we're doing with Great Yarmouth First. So I think Great Yarmouth First for us is an incredibly important development, and what we've got to do is show that at local level, people can actually take control of what they're doing. Meanwhile, at national level, with the support of the British people, what we need to do is, I think, get more new people with experience who've got a proven track record of success, who understand their constituency, and who share the view that this country is badly broken and needs restoring.
But at its best, the best country in the world.
I've always said this is the best place in the world to live. And most of the expats, and many of them have helped fund us, which is extremely kind of them, because they would love to come back here.
Yes.
But they're not going to come back here when they see the injustice that's going on at the moment. And then they see, idiots like Lord Herm trying to give away the Chagos Islands and paying compensation to people in Guantanamo Bay. And, these human rights lawyers, they are, I'm afraid, Charlie, a cancer amongst us. Human rights law is totally and utterly deficient. And what it does is it just creates this welfarism that we don't want. We want self-sufficiency. We want individuals, proud people who actually do go and work and fight for it. And that's what we used to have, and that's what we've got to get back to.
Yeah, and those guys...
So I want a group of people who put the nation first, make good decisions for the nation, and then, to Matt's point, don't hate each other for disagreeing about local issues. I might think that, investment in the fishing boat and the fishing fleet in Great Yarmouth is more important than the cider industry in Herefordshire.
Yeah, fine.
We can have an active debate about it and decide. Quite apart from the fact I don't like central planning. I loathe.
I thought you were going to say I don't like cider then.
No, I like cider. I like cider. And I was going to ask you. Do you think Somerset or
come on, mate.
Somerset or Herefordshire cider? I put them both in the same category. They're probably the best ciders in the world, aren't they?
They probably are. Well, there was a great phrase. I think it was Pete Brown, a beer writer, who said that he considered Herefordshire was Somerset was the heart of cider making, but Herefordshire's the brain.
Interesting.
That was his quote, not mine.
Will Somerset be upset by that? They
probably.
might
be. Probably. But,
I've got a business in Somerset, so
exactly,
don't embarrass me, man.
But hey, there's some lovely ciders down in Somerset, but I think I probably prefer the ones in Herefordshire.
But then you would say that.
But no. So the point is, do we invest in cider making? Do we invest in the fishing fleet? Do we invest in oil and gas offshore Great Yarmouth? Do we invest in our holiday industry? I think. That's what Parliament used to be, a group of people who represented their constituency, who went into Parliament as the elected gods, in a way, of the people. And what's happened is we've been undermined, the MPs have been undermined by the Blairite legislation, which has basically given the power to the quangos, to the regulators, to all of the sort of the staff of Parliament for a start, which I'm fighting a battle on at the moment, which I hope to win, because I want power returned to the MPs. I don't want all these experts telling us what to do. Go into Parliament because you're going to make a difference, and don't fear making decisions. And if you get the decisions wrong, and people kick you out, tough.
It's a really
but at
important
least
point,
you've
though.
got to make decisions. I mean, making decisions is
Yes.
key. I watched that great movie. You've got to watch this. Another movie for you.
Yep.
Touching the Void. Right.
Oh, very good.
And that
yes.
guy fell down
Oh,
the
man.
crevasse. Right. He couldn't get out. But he said, I had to keep making decisions. So he decided to lower himself down into the darkness of a crevasse that may have no way out, and die in a cold, dark crevasse as his only way out. And he got lucky. He made a decision. He dropped himself on a rope. He tied a knot on the end of the rope, so he knew when he reached the end of the rope, and he knew what to expect after that. But he found a way out. He kept making decisions.
Yeah.
So you cannot stop making good decisions. You've got to keep making decisions. And you've got to hold the people making those decisions to account.
Yes.
You can't allow them to hide behind quangos and experts and
We were just
professionals.
told to do it.
Yeah.
All of these, they're almost criminal now, these people. They're fleecing the British taxpayer, and they're actually making our economy less efficient. Accountants who can use their power now, they don't sign off on accounts, therefore people can't get bank loans, therefore their businesses go bust. Then some sort of unprincipled liquidator robs their business off them. So there's all sorts of stuff. I mean, we heard about that in 2008 in the crash, where banks were taking advantage of business.
Yeah.
And again, we haven't heard, that hasn't been fully outed. So you've almost got this sort of criminal conspiracy, which is what the British people have got to throw off, of this bureaucracy, which I think has become dishonest.
I do think that's a really important point, Rupert, about the making of decisions, because I do think that our leaders fear making decisions, partly because they fear
Obsessed with ethics.
blame. They fear blame if things go wrong. But I think it's also just a basic fear of just not having the courage of your convictions, because they have no convictions. And that's why they rely on all of the like the OBR and all these other kind of
OBR's always wrong, John.
Yeah, well, they are. They're wrong on every single metric.
right.
Yeah, but they rely on these external bodies to make their decisions for them, and so there is this constant passing of the buck, and nobody can really be sure who's actually in charge. That's what I find most scary about the system that we have in this country. Is that in a system like China, for instance, you can say what you want about it, nobody doubts that Xi Jinping is the top guy in that system, right? The buck stops with him.
They can't afford to.
Quite, yeah.
They end up with their body parts being sold to
literally.
the medical industry if they're not careful.
Yeah. But in our country, there is this kind of opaqueness to our system where we don't actually know who is the final point of decision. And I think that's a really concerning thing. And more to the point, you have to ask, well, what is informing the decisions that people make? And this is where I want to bring it back to reform, because I do think that people sometimes criticize reform for the wrong reasons. They'll say that reform is incompetent and all this sort of thing. I don't know whether that's true. I've met and worked with plenty of people who work in reform now, and they're perfectly competent people. My concern is more about what drives the decisions of the leadership, because I don't actually buy that they're in it for the country. I
don't think we have any issue with the reform membership. I've always,
of course not. No.
I think the reform membership wants what we want.
I'd agree.
But I do have an issue now, obviously, with the reform leadership, which I think isn't devolving power in the way I would like to see power devolved. I mean, you work with me. I don't want to aggregate power. I want to devolve it and let other people get involved who share the same vision. So I have nothing other than praise for the membership of reform. Yeah. And I can quite understand that they say, well, Restore Britain is not a party, it's a movement, therefore you can't make a difference. Therefore, even though we like what you're saying and we like your research on pubs and your research on deportation, we can't vote for you because you haven't got a party. But I say to them, let's keep going as we are. Let's see where we go. We've still got at least 3 years till the next election.
Yes.
Unless, as I've always said, the currency collapses, which I'm expecting it to do. I think Britain, not only we've got organised crime running the country, I think we're running a fraud because somehow our currency is being supported by, I don't know who, but it is completely illogical that our currency is as strong as it is.
Yes.
And I think I've said this before, that the entire post-war order collapses when the currencies of the victors collapse and the currencies of those people whose economies we've rebuilt take over. And that's something that hasn't happened yet. I think that's a dam that's being held up, probably by the central banks.
Yes.
But because then the whole thing changes and it becomes very difficult for those people who haven't invested in their economy and don't understand that in the end, the nation state and cooperating nation states is so important to the way in which the globe operates, not great big sort of blocks of centrally planned sort of globalists who don't care about communities, just as we've been talking about.
I think your point about leadership is really relevant, because if you're trying to run a decent organisation, and you've run lots of businesses, the people who've had that life experience, and going back to who's making these decisions, and why are they involved when they don't want to make a decision, if you've had an experience, then when you've delegated power, or you're the CEO, there's your sales director, there's your finance director. Those people will make informed decisions, and you'll back them, and decisions will be made quickly, and you'll progress. Now, the problem arises when people have never been in a position where that's how they've operated, and then they find themselves in charge of a department, so they haven't made decisions. Yes. They haven't had to put your balls on the line and actually go, right, we're doing this. Might get this wrong.
It's because
they hide behind the NGOs, they hide behind the other regulators. So nothing ever changes, no decisions made, because they're not strong enough, and they're too obsessed with what it's going to look like on Twitter in 2 minutes' time. Yes,
I agree with you though, Rupert, that a new slate of people is, I think, what this country needs at this point, and it has to be people who are, again, not in it, because I just get this impression. Look, we live in a political system that seems to select for people. It selects, serves moneyed interests. It selects for people who are about money, who are about status, and this sort of thing. I think most of Parliament are there not because they actually care about the country and the well-being of the country, and they're scared about the direction this country is going in, but they're there because, again, it is a kind of status thing. They're like rubbing shoulders with elites and so on. We need a new slate of people who are not in it for those reasons. We need, and maybe that's why we need people who have got who are independently wealthy, who don't need. You often talk about how a lot of these people in Parliament are there for the paycheck as well. You want people there who are not there for the paycheck, who are not there for the status, but who are there for no other reason than they want to see this country saved.
Well, history tells you, Charlie, that people don't give up power very easily. So even if the system is deficient,
yes, people
who've tasted power don't want to give it up. So, and this is the issue. So we've got to try and change this, what I call deficient power base and deficient decision making, before we end up with a sort of French Revolution like guillotine-esque. Let's chop the heads off people. We haven't historically. Britain's never had that type. Thank God. And we're very slow to react. But I do think, the more I go out and about now, the more I think that the people have had enough of what's going on. And I think they want change. So,
I hope that's true.
I say to them, you cannot, it's not good enough just to expect a few people to change it. You've got to stand up.
Yes.
And you've got to be counted. And it's a fascinating juxtaposition. I mean, what's happening in Iran is fascinating. Because again, you've got a situation where you've had this Islamic State, which is clearly failing. And, the BBC, who are very happy to criticize anybody else, I haven't heard Jeremy Bowen criticize the Iranian regime for shooting their own people. Not only shooting them in the street, they're taking them off and executing them. This is their own people. I mean, I liken it to Parliament putting up the fence round itself, to keep its people out.
Yes.
I mean, when are we going to accept the fact that in the end, those people are brave enough, they've had enough, they're standing up and they're fighting, losing their lives, some of them. So I hope our people act now. We don't want anybody to lose their life. What we want them to do is to stand up and make it clear they want change.
Yes.
And they can only do that if they stand up and they are counted.
Yes.
Because they can't expect anything to change in this country if they're just going to accept the status quo. Because they'll go on being abused by this quangocracy, this administrative, this dishonest administrative bureaucracy, which is robbing them. Because their life could be so much better if they stood up to it. And I tell you what, Charlie. Those people who can't tell other people what to do. And I'm with the people who've got skills, who actually can make things happen. I'm with all the people in the economy, who who do take risk, who do run their businesses, who do employ people, who can actually wire a plug, who can, plumb a boiler, who can actually make things happen. Because all of these indolent administrators haven't got a clue. What they do is they oppress other people.
They're such parasites.
They're parasites.
They stop others coming up.
They are parasites. And as soon as everybody realizes that, and the better. Because that's what we have, a dishonest administrative system now. It didn't used to be. I think we had a very honest civil service. But from what I can see, it's become deeply dishonest and dysfunctional.
Yes.
It really feels to me that I embarrass my mum, but mum's a bellwether, So mum listens, for example, gets news from the BBC or this sort of thing. And then after I've been telling her probably for 10 years, perhaps you might want to try something else. But she's now seeing things like that. And I think other people, I call it perhaps it's the parapet moment, when there's a lot of people now just sort of going, actually, I agree with this. Yeah. And in Iran you get shot, but here you put your head above the parapet and you'll get cancelled, or your boss will say something, or you can't.
Or you might get cancelled, or you might get accused of being a bully, or there'll be some other sanction on you.
Dreadfully worried about losing your job. Yeah. Or how it will affect your business. Some of the people we spoke to in the pub policy, I'm happy, you can't, I don't want to be quoted in it.
Well, some of the banks.
I completely agree with what you're saying.
Some of the banks are making political judgments now.
I can't be quoted. So I think that the cusp of where we are, I think we're at this next few months, you're going to see people sharing, and we know that the Facebook numbers, people following yourselves and Restore are just going huge through the roof. I mean, thousands every day. But those people then will start sharing it, and they'll start going, I don't mind if people see me saying this now, because I've had enough.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of level of just going, I've had enough. And the British get there eventually.
The badge of honour is being called a racist by Emily Maitlis.
Is it?
I challenge everybody.
Is that what you
like
want to
me?
do?
I've got the badge of honour. I challenge everybody to go and get the badge of honour.
Should we get little pins done? Like I've been Maitlis.
Yeah. No, I think the public mood is pretty febrile, but actually, I don't think any of us want to see scenes on the streets of London like those in Tehran.
No.
And actually, I don't think any of us would be sitting here if we didn't think it was possible to rescue this country peacefully using democratic means.
Reason and sense.
Yeah, can be done. Well, thank you very much for joining us once again, folks, and we will be back next week. Until then, take care.